rehabilitation. So here we go. So, you know Emerson? Everybody familiar with Emerson? Yeah? He says, what consists in what a person is thinking of all day?
La vie, ça consiste à ce qu'une personne pense toute la journée.
So that begs the question, what are you thinking of, right? And is it worth your time?
À quoi vous pensez? Est-ce que ça vaut quelque chose?
So when we deal with cognitive rehabilitation, we're really talking about thought processes and the emotions that are connected to our thoughts.
La rééducation cognitive, c'est surtout lié à ce à quoi on pense et comment ça fonctionne les pensées.
So cognitive rehabilitation defined. Keith Cicerone, PhD, says that cognitive rehab is a system of therapeutic activities based on the relationship between the brain and action, right, brain and behavior, directed to achieve functional change. So we're going to use therapeutic activities to bring about changes in the way that we think or feel that are functional. So my next question is going to be, what do we mean by functional change?
Du coup, la rééducation cognitive, c'est donc un système d'activité thérapeutique qui fait le lien entre comment le cerveau fonctionne et comment ça amène à faire des mouvements. Voilà, et du coup,
Yeah, so what do we mean by functional change?
Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire les changements fonctionnels?
We're going to talk.
Are we answering?
Okay. We're going to actually talk this morning. Grant.
Something that you can use, like daily life skills, kind of what's really beneficial for the client or for anyone.
Yeah, something useful for your daily life. Good. Okay. So in cognitive rehab, there are different ways to do that. We can work on processes that were learned before and then lost. You know, when people have accidents or injuries, they often will lose cognitive abilities, just like they lose motor function or speech. And so we can work to bring those back.
Donc, la première chose qu'on peut faire, c'est travailler sur des choses qui faisaient au quotidien et qu'ils ont perdu après un accident. Et du coup, on peut essayer de retravailler là-dessus et pour essayer de les réapprendre.
Another thing that we might do is to establish new patterns, new ways of thinking and working that involve really new strategies or tools that we can use for cognitive processes.
Donc, une autre chose qu'on peut travailler, c'est utiliser des nouveaux schémas d'activité cognitive et pour essayer de compenser un peu avec des mécanismes de compensation.
And then a third way to work on in cognitive rehab is to actually use external compensatory techniques, so tools from the outside that will help us.
Et du coup, la troisième façon, c'est de compenser, d'avoir des techniques de compensation avec des outils vraiment extérieurs.
So an example might be someone loses the ability to remember a schedule, to remember what they're doing throughout the day, which is very common. So they might carry a notebook with them that reminds them of every step. That's an external compensatory technique.
Donc, par exemple, quelqu'un qui a du mal à se rappeler un peu de tous les jours, il peut utiliser son emploi du temps, il peut utiliser un carnet et noter un peu tout ça. Donc c'est un outil externe de compensation.
Okay. And then the last way, helping somebody to adapt. So when someone has a traumatic event, like a stroke or accident or illness, they are going to have, there are going to be a lot of new circumstances, new deficits, and just helping them to be able to cope with that new way of living.
Donc c'est aussi faire en sorte qu'ils s'adaptent parce qu'après un accident comme ça, ils vont avoir des déficiences et des façons différentes de devoir gérer ça. Et du coup, c'est pour les aider à gérer ça.
Okay. So, to recap, basically when we look at cognitive rehabilitation, we're looking at thoughts, we're looking at feelings or emotions, and we're looking at the behaviors that result from those.
Donc la rééducation cognitive, on va travailler sur les pensées, sur les émotions, les sentiments et toutes les attitudes reliées à ça.
Okay. So this is Amy's slide. I stole it, so you'll see it twice. But I wanted to show this slide to you because so many of these areas are related to cognition.
Il y a beaucoup d'aires qui sont reliées à la cognition.
So let's look at a couple of them. Sensory association areas, integration of sensory information. So right back here, you've got this area of your brain in the blue that is going to help you connect all of the information that you take in through your senses, hearing, taste, vision, etc.
Du coup, la partie bleue, c'est la partie donc, qui aide à connecter tout ce qu'on entend, les sensations, tout ça, et à connecter tout ça.
So if that particular area of the parietal lobe is damaged, then you're going to have some difficulty with sensory integration.
Donc si ça c'est abîmé, on va avoir des problèmes avec la sensibilité et le sensibilité.
And of course, oh sorry. Yeah, so perception has to do with cognition, right? Another area that really relates directly to communication and cognition at the same time, Wernicke's area, right here. Okay. What is Wernicke's area related? What do you think of?
À quoi est-ce liée cette partie-là?
Is that aphasia? Yeah? What kind? Yes, receptive aphasia or comprehension, right? If this area of the brain is damaged, then we're going to have difficulty taking in information, understanding people's communication, which is a cognitive issue, right? Really, I mean, it's both.
Donc si ça c'est endommagé, on va avoir du mal à comprendre les autres, se faire comprendre, et du coup c'est un problème cognitif.
Another example of how cognition is kind of everywhere, the limbic system, limbic association cortex. This area has a whole lot to do with our emotional processing, our learning and memory, all of those connected to that subcortical area.
Du coup, cette partie-là aussi, elle est liée aux émotions, au fait d'apprendre et d'assimiler, et à la mémoire aussi. Donc c'est aussi les problèmes cognitifs si elle est en jeu.
And then the big one that we talk about a lot with cognition is right here. The prefrontal association areas, which would be in what lobes? Frontal lobes, right? Okay, so the frontal lobes of your brain are responsible for higher cognitive functions.
Donc ça, c'est la partie responsable des hautes fonctions cognitives.
We'll look at that a little bit more closely.
On va en parler un peu.
Okay, even the brainstem, which we didn't see. Where's your brainstem? Okay, the base, right? Right? Breathing. You can't think if you're not breathing. Right? So, all of these things have to do with cognition. The brainstem is very important for breathing, for arousal, which is that basic consciousness, being awake or asleep. Being able to attend and concentrate also requires the brainstem to be working properly. And heart rate, sleeping and waking.
Donc c'est, oui, le brainstem, la partie...
The base of the
brain. La partie de base du cerveau, donc responsable pour la respiration, pour la conscience et le fait d'être endormi ou pas, pour l'attention, la concentration aussi.
Okay. frontal lobes. Look at that long list. I don't know if you just want to read those in French. Or...
Donc le lobe frontal est aussi responsable pour l'attention et la concentration, la régulation, l'autodécision, l'organisation, le langage. Savoir ses limites et ses capacités, la personnalité, être adaptable ou pas, l'inhibition de l'attitude, les émotions, comment résoudre des problèmes, comment organiser et anticiper les choses et le jugement.
Okay, so when we talk about self-monitoring, basically the idea that we can observe our own behaviors. Just to kind of clarify some of these awareness of abilities. So this is self-awareness. Inhibition of behavior, that's a bit we see a lot with traumatic brain injury. If the frontal lobes are impaired, people may not be able to regulate their own behavior or their own impulses. So whatever I think, I do.
Des personnes avec des problèmes frontal, ils peuvent plus réguler correctement du coup, cette inhibition et tout ce qu'ils pensent, ils le font directement.
And then judgment, that would include decision-making skills, things like that.
Prendre des décisions.
Okay, so a lot of functions in that frontal lobe. Temporal lobes. What do you know? What do we think of with temporal lobes?
C'est quoi
Or temporal, either way.
Hearing.
Hearing, yeah. Music processing, right? Partly. Music is everywhere, but hearing, the sense of hearing, processed primarily in the temporal lobes. Also, though, we have memory, that Wernicke's area, receptive language, sequencing. So this is first, this is next, last, and then just basic organization skills. Parietal lobes. Where are your parietal lobes? Yeah, basically on top, right? So, again, a lot to do with the senses and integrating your senses. But some basic cognitive functions like identifying or differentiating between shapes and colors.
Faire la différence entre les tailles, les couleurs et les formes.
Okay, so that's just those are just a few primary examples of the areas of the brain that are involved in cognitive functioning. So we see that cognitive functioning happens all over.
Donc les fonctions cognitives, on se rend compte qu'elles sont partout, un peu partout dans le cerveau.
There are 6 areas of cognitive functioning that we are going to introduce before we get to the actual techniques.
Donc d'abord, on va parler de 6 fonctions cognitives avant de parler de la technique en lui-même.
And they basically go from very simple to more complex.
Donc ça va être plus simple que plus compliqué.
Okay, so arousal, we've already talked about a little bit, but refers to reactivity, basically that level of alertness. So,
Du coup, arousal, je ne sais pas exactement comment traduire. C'est un peu la réaction du corps par rapport à ce qui se passe autour du corps. Enfin, la réaction de...
yeah, I think this is the most descriptive point here. In general, aroused means to be wide awake, alert, vigorous, excited. Unaroused can be defined as freely sleepy, sluggish, tired, and relaxed. So you're aroused, right? You're all aroused, right? Yeah.